It's a typical night at What a Tavern in Vero Beach. The camera catches a young woman walking out into the humid Florida air. She isn't alone. There's a man by her side. They walk to the parking lot, but instead of getting into one car, they head to their own cars. As they pull out of the lot, the grainy security footage shows them trailing one another. Then at 1:45 a.m., she texted her mother, "I won't be home tonight." 5 words. After that, silence. That was the last time anyone ever heard from her.
Pay attention to Diana Duvet. She has less than 6 hours left to live. Charming ex-boyfriend with a dangerous secret is waiting. On this day, Diana planned to finally move forward with her life.
26 years old, an oncology nurse who cared for cancer patients. She left this bar believing the man she was with had changed. 3 days later, investigators found her body in the trunk of her own car. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked back and wished someone had noticed the danger sooner? If you understand that feeling, quietly subscribe. Because stories like this exist so people don't disappear unseen. Diana Duvet was born in Moldova, a small country in Eastern Europe most Americans couldn't find on a map. At 13, she moved to America to join her mother, Lena, who had married an American man. Diana arrived speaking no English. Within 2 months, she was in regular school classes. Within a few years, you couldn't tell she hadn't been born here. Her mother remembers her determination, the way she refused to let obstacles stop her. In 2011, Diana earned her nursing degree. By June 2014, she worked at Sebastian River Medical Center in the oncology ward. Cancer patients, the dying, the terrified families watching their loved ones fade. Her co-workers said patients requested her by name. Parents of sick children asked for her specifically. Terminal patients trusted her with their final fears. Diana's best friend Chelsea described her as easygoing, fun, highly motivated, the kind of person who made everyone around her feel valued. But that compassion, that instinct to see good in people, to help, to heal, made her vulnerable. In summer 2013, Diana met Michael Jones at a bar in Vero Beach. He was 32, 6 years older, a wealth manager at PNC Bank handling multi-million-dollar accounts. To everyone who knew him, Mike seemed like a catch. To Diana, he seemed perfect. She had no idea what he really was. Michael David Jones looked successful on paper. Wealth manager, charity fundraiser attendee. PNC Bank gave him glowing performance reviews praising his strong ethics and leadership. But underneath that polished surface lived something much darker. In 2012, before moving to Vero Beach, Jones had been charged with aggravated stalking in Fort Lauderdale. He'd threatened to kill an ex-girlfriend. She called 911, terrified. "My ex-boyfriend just told me he packed his gun and that as soon as I walk outside, a gunshot will go off in my head." Jones pleaded no contest. He was still on probation when he met Diana. She didn't know about his criminal record. Her family didn't know. Nobody knew. Mike had come to Vero Beach and reinvented himself. He told outlandish lies, claiming he was adopted by Ronald Reagan's son. Stories that made him seem important, connected, trustworthy. People believed him because he was skilled at performing normalcy. When Diana started dating him in 2013, she saw the charming banker everyone else saw. Within months, they moved in together. That's when the mask started slipping. And Diana got her first glimpse of who Mike Jones really was. At first, Mike was everything Diana hoped for. He texted her good morning, asked about her shifts at the hospital, listened when she talked about losing patients, about the weight of caring for people who were dying. He seemed to understand her in ways others didn't. Chelsea remembers Diana glowing those first few months, happy, excited about the future. When Mike asked her to move in, Diana said yes. It felt natural, adult, like the relationship was progressing the way relationships should. But once Diana's belongings were in his apartment, something shifted. Mike didn't like her going out with friends without him. He'd text constantly when she was at work, asking where she was, who she was talking to, when she'd be home. If she didn't respond immediately, he'd get angry. Diana started making excuses to Chelsea. "He's just worried about me. He's protective. He had a bad day." The classic rationalizations of someone who doesn't want to see what's right in front of them. Diana was isolated now, living with a man who was slowly tightening his control, and she didn't even realize it was happening. Chelsea started noticing Diana pulling away, They'd been best friends for years, but suddenly Diana was never available. Every plan got canceled. Every invitation declined. Mike and I already have something that night. Mike doesn't want me going out without him. Mike thinks it was always Mike. Then one night, Diana's behavior became impossible to ignore. She stopped hanging out with anyone unless Mike was there. She seemed anxious when her phone buzzed. She'd check it constantly, like she was monitoring something. Chelsea confronted her. "You're different. You never see anyone anymore." Diana got defensive, made excuses, said Chelsea didn't understand their relationship, but deep down, Diana knew something was wrong. Mike's jealousy had become suffocating. He accused her of flirting with male coworkers. He demanded to know her schedule down to the minute. He checked her phone. When she pushed back, he'd explode, screaming, slamming doors, punching walls. Then he'd apologize, cry, promise it wouldn't happen again. And Diana, compassionate, forgiving Diana, believed him. She wanted to believe the good version of Mike was real and the angry version was just stress. She was wrong. The worst was still coming. The hardest part isn't what happened on camera, it's what didn't happen. No one stepped in, no one asked questions. All right, if you've ever felt that regret, stay here, subscribe. This channel is for people who notice what others ignore. The night Diana almost died, it started with an argument. Something small, something Mike turned into a reason to scream at her for hours. Diana tried to defend herself, tried to explain, tried to calm him down using the same skills she used with agitated patients at the hospital. But Mike wasn't a patient. He was a man who'd been waiting for an excuse. The yelling escalated. Mike's face turned red. His hands curled into fists. Then he grabbed her. His hands wrapped around her throat. Diana couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The room started going dark. This was it. She was going to die in the apartment of a man she trusted. But somehow, maybe he got scared. Maybe he wasn't ready to cross that line yet. Mike let go. Diana gasped for air, her throat burning, her body shaking. She didn't wait to see if he'd change his mind. Still in her pajamas, Diana ran to her car and drove straight to Chelsea's house. She was hysterical, crying so hard she could barely speak. Chelsea saw the marks on her neck. She begged Diana to call the police. Diana refused. Instead, she broke up with Mike and moved back in with her parents. She thought leaving was enough. She thought the nightmare was over. She had no idea it was just beginning. When someone you love shows you who they really are, do you believe them or do you give them another chance? Diana chose to leave. She did everything right, but sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. If that terrifies you the way it should, subscribe, because the warning signs don't always save us. Diana moved out. She blocked Mike's number. She told her mother what happened. Lena was relieved, proud that her daughter had the strength to leave. But Mike didn't accept it. He kept texting from different numbers, showing up at places he knew she'd be, acting like the breakup hadn't happened. Diana's mother remembers her daughter saying, "He texts me constantly. It's like he doesn't understand that I broke up with him." But Mike understood perfectly. He just didn't care. In his mind, Diana belonged to him. She didn't get to decide when it was over. For months, Mike pursued her, sometimes apologetic, sometimes angry, always persistent. Diana tried to be kind about it. She'd respond occasionally, trying to let him down gently, hoping he'd eventually move on. That compassion, that instinct to be nice even to someone who'd hurt her, kept a door open, and Mike was waiting for the moment to walk back through it. In June 2014, he finally got his chance. Diana agreed to meet him one more time. Just to talk, she thought. June 19th, 2014 started like any normal day. Diana worked her shift at the hospital, came home, had dinner with her parents. Then her phone rang. It was Mike. He wanted to see her, just to talk, to get closure, to end things the right way. Diana hesitated. She'd been planning a trip out west to visit a friend. She was moving forward with her life. She didn't need closure from Mike, but he sounded calm, reasonable, maybe even sad. And Diana, still kind, still believing people could change, agreed to meet him, just for a drink, in public, at a tavern, a local bar where there'd be witnesses, cameras, safety. She didn't tell her parents where she was going. She didn't ask Chelsea to come with her. She thought she could handle it alone. At 11:30 p.m., Diana walked into What a Tavern. Mike was already there, waiting. Witnesses said they seemed friendly at first, talking, drinking. At one point, Diana looked upset, but then she seemed fine again. The bar closed at 1 a.m. At 1:15 a.m., surveillance cameras captured them leaving, together. That footage would become the last confirmed sighting of Diana Duvay alive. The cameras outside What a Tavern show Diana and Mike walking to their cars. They're talking. Diana gets into her vehicle. Mike gets into his. Then Diana's car follows Mike's out of the parking lot. Investigators believe she followed him back to his apartment. Why did she go? Maybe Mike convinced her they needed to talk somewhere quieter. Maybe he said he had something to give her back. Maybe he promised it would only take a few minutes. Whatever he said, Diana believed him. At 1:45 a.m., Diana sent her mother a text message. "I won't be home tonight." Lena saw it the next morning. She wasn't worried yet. Diana was 26 years old. Sometimes she stayed at a friend's house. But Diana called her mother every single day. By Saturday afternoon, when Diana hadn't called, Lena knew something was wrong. "If she's not calling me," Lena would later tell investigators, "it's because she can't." Meanwhile, inside Mike's apartment, something terrible had already happened. Diana's phone went silent. Her car sat hidden in his garage, and Mike was already planning his next move. When the truth finally surfaced, everyone said the signs were obvious, but they only saw them after it was too late. If you've ever been the only one who sensed something was wrong, this space is yours. Subscribe. Not loudly, just intentionally. No one knows exactly what was said inside Mike's apartment in those early morning hours, but investigators pieced together what likely happened. Diana probably told Mike she was done, really done this time, that she was moving on, that the trip out west wasn't just a vacation, it was a fresh start, that he needed to accept it was over. For months, Mike had been pursuing her, texting, calling, showing up, refusing to let go. But now Diana was setting a boundary he couldn't manipulate his way around, and Mike couldn't handle it. The man who'd strangled her once before, who'd been charged with threatening to kill a previous girlfriend, wasn't going to let Diana walk away. Prosecutors believed the argument escalated quickly. Mike's rage took over. He beat her. Then he wrapped his hands around her throat, just like he'd done months earlier. Except this time, he didn't stop. Diana fought. She had defensive wounds. She tried to survive. But Mike was bigger, stronger, and he'd already made his decision. He strangled her manually, with his bare hands, until she stopped breathing. The young woman who'd spent her career helping cancer patients fight for their lives was now fighting for her own, and she lost. Diana Duvay died in the apartment of a man she'd tried to leave. When the truth finally surfaced, everyone said the signs were obvious, but they only saw them after it was too late. If you've ever been the only one who sensed something was wrong, this space is yours. Subscribe. Not loudly, just intentionally. Diana was dead and Mike Jones had a problem. Her body was in his apartment. Her car was in his garage. Her mother would be expecting a phone call. He needed time. Mike wrapped Diana's body and placed it in the trunk of her own car, still parked inside his garage where no one could see it. Crime scene investigators would later find tiny droplets of Diana's blood near the threshold of the garage door, evidence of where he'd moved her. Then Mike went to sleep. The next morning, just 12 hours after murdering Diana,
1 in the afternoon on Friday, roughly 12 hours after leaving the bar with Diana. Then investigators discovered Jones's criminal record, the stalking conviction, the probation violation.
Surveillance cameras at a PNC Bank ATM. He withdrew $2,500 in cash. He told co-workers at the bank he wasn't feeling well, that he'd be gone for a couple of days. Then he got in his car and drove away from Vero Beach. Diana's body was still in the trunk of her car, still in his garage. He'd left her there like she was nothing, like the woman he'd claimed to love was just a problem he needed to hide. Mike thought he had time to figure out his next move. He was wrong. Saturday, June 21st. Lena waited for her daughter's daily phone call. It didn't come. By afternoon, Lena's worry turned to panic. Diana called every single day. Every single day. If she didn't call, something was terribly wrong. Lena tried Diana's phone, straight to voicemail. She called Diana's friends. No one had seen her. She called the hospital. Diana hadn't shown up for her shift. That's when Lena knew. She drove to the Vero Beach Police Department and filed a missing persons report. "My daughter is missing," she told detectives. "She always calls me. If she's not calling, it's because she can't." Police asked the standard questions. Had Diana been depressed? Was she having problems? Could she have left voluntarily? Lena was firm. "No, something happened to her." She told them about Mike Jones, about the strangulation incident, about how he wouldn't leave Diana alone after the breakup. Detectives started investigating immediately. They pulled phone records, checked surveillance footage from What a Tavern. The cameras showed Diana leaving with Mike at 1:15 a.m. Friday morning. That was 48 hours ago, and no one had seen her since. Time was running out. Detectives went to Mike's apartment. He wasn't there. His co-workers said he'd called in sick and left town. That raised immediate red flags. Police obtained a search warrant for his apartment and garage. On Sunday, June 22nd, 3 days after Diana was last seen alive, investigators made entry. The apartment looked normal at first, but when they opened the garage, they found Diana's car, and inside the trunk was Diana Duve's body. She'd been beaten, strangled, left in the trunk like garbage while Mike withdrew cash and fled. The medical examiner confirmed she died from manual strangulation, killed by someone's bare hands around her throat, the same hands that had strangled her months earlier when she'd escaped. Crime scene investigators found small droplets of Diana's blood by the garage door threshold, evidence that Mike had moved her body after killing her. They found her phone, her belongings, everything confirming she'd died in that apartment. Lena's worst fear was confirmed. Her daughter, the girl who'd immigrated from Moldova at 13, speaking no English, who'd become a nurse, who'd dedicated her life to caring for dying patients, was dead, murdered by the man she tried to leave. Now police had a new mission: find Michael David Jones and bring him to justice. Michael David Jones was on the run. He'd withdrawn $2,500 in cash, told his employer he was sick, and disappeared. Police issued a warrant for his arrest on charges of first-degree murder. His face was plastered across local news. Tips started pouring in, but Mike had a head start. Investigators tracked his movements through credit card transactions and surveillance footage. He was heading north, staying in cheap motels, paying cash when he could. He'd killed Diana on Friday morning. By Sunday, police had found her body. By Monday, they knew exactly who they were looking for. The question was, where did he go? Mike wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was a wealth manager who'd murdered his ex-girlfriend in a rage and panicked. He had no plan, no allies, no exit strategy, just cash and desperation. On June 26th, 1 week after Diana's murder, police got the break they needed. A tip came in from Kentucky. Someone had spotted a man matching Mike's description at a motel outside Lexington. Police surrounded the building. Mike Jones had nowhere left to run. When officers knocked on his door, he surrendered without a fight. The manhunt was over. Michael David Jones was extradited back to Florida to face trial for Diana's murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Diana's body found in her car, in his garage, her blood at the scene. Surveillance footage showing them leaving the bar together, his previous strangulation attack on her, his history of threatening to kill an ex-girlfriend, his flight from the state immediately after the murder. In court, prosecutors laid out the timeline, the relationship, the violence, the breakup he refused to accept. They argued Mike couldn't handle Diana moving on with her life, so he killed her. Mike's defense tried to claim it wasn't premeditated, that it was a crime of passion, but the jury didn't buy it. On February 23, 2016, nearly 2 years after Diana's death, Michael David Jones was found guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No apology, no remorse, no explanation that could ever justify what he'd done. Diana's family sat in the courtroom as the verdict was read. Justice had been served, but it would never bring Diana back. Diana Duve should still be here. She should be caring for cancer patients at Sebastian River Medical Center. She should be calling her mother every day. She should be living the life she worked so hard to build. Instead, her story became a warning, a reminder that leaving an abusive relationship is the most dangerous moment, that restraining orders are just paper, that sometimes doing everything right still isn't enough. Diana's mother, Lena, speaks publicly about her daughter's case. hoping to help other families recognize the warning signs. Chelsea, Diana's best friend, carries the weight of wishing she'd done more. The oncology patients Diana cared for never got to say goodbye to the nurse who held their hands through the hardest moments of their lives. Michael David Jones sits in prison, serving life without parole, but no sentence can undo what he took. Diana was 26 years old, an immigrant who achieved the American dream, a healer who gave everything to help others, a daughter who called her mother every single day, until the day she couldn't. She trusted the wrong person, and it cost her everything. This footage didn't just capture a crime, it captured a warning. And if this story stayed with ye, subscribe, because remembering them is the only justice some victims ever get.